Fiverr can be quite competitive, especially as a new seller, but if you can actually push past that beginning phase, you can actually become quite successful and make quite a bit of money on the platform.
I'm talking about this.
And so in today's video, I'm going to show you 7 secret Fiverr tips that either I have used or someone whom I know have used to help you optimize your Fiverr gigs and make more money online. Before we begin though, do be sure that the like button has already been turned blue by you just gently smashing it, and also remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more cutting edge videos about making money online and digital entrepreneurship just like this one. And you can check out my investing channel as well. And with that, let's get started with the video. Now before we begin, I want to just quickly plug my new 2021 Fiverr guide, which covers 30 new and beginner-friendly Fiverr gigs and over 20 free tools that you can use to help you do these gigs and perform, these jobs. You can actually check it out in the description box below or just by visiting my YouTube channel.
Of course!
And with that, wasting no more time, let's get right into my first tip for succeeding on Fiverr. And that is to actually include in your comments a special note to tell people to actually message you before they place an order, or if they have a question, for you to be able to create a so-called custom order. And if any of that sounded confusing at all, don't worry, because I'll walk you through exactly step by step how you can set this up. So first of all, we have this gig here, which is a social media manager gig. And if I just scroll down to the description, you'll actually see that at the very bottom, it says to actually discuss your project before placing an order, which means people actually should message this person before they actually order any of these packages. And besides including this statement in your description, I also recommend including another sentence that says people can feel free to ask questions if they have any, or if they actually need something done that is not necessarily specifically listed under any of your packages. And also I recommend moving those messages up to the top of your description to make it a bit more likely for people to message you. And the reason we want people to actually get into your inbox and message you is that this actually makes it more likely for you to sell a gig to them. And the main need or demand, so to speak, that you're trying to target here is people who need something done for them that isn't really specifically listed on any of your packages. For example, they may need something bigger done for them, more than the premium package that this person has here, for example, or more likely, they actually need something very specific and small done for them, and they don't necessarily want to pay the $40 for that just one small issue. And thus, by getting in contact with people in your messages, you can actually iron out what exactly they need. And if it's something that can't be covered by any of your packages that you have on Fiverr, and by the way, you can only have up to 3 different packages, so it isn't necessarily as tailor-made to everybody. What you can do with messages is you can actually create something called a custom order for them.
I haven't a clue what's going on here, but I'll act like I do.
For instance, over here from one of my old gigs, where I used to review people's YouTube channels, I was able to create a very simple custom offer for somebody who actually only needed me to check why his channel wasn't monetized. And because this buyer only needed me to help him solve a very specific and small problem and didn't want to pay the entire amount for the full channel review, I was able to actually make an extra $5 and also help him out in addition to what I already have, for my normal Fiverr gigs.
Some people can't handle success. I can.
Next, moving on to tip number 2, we have setting up your gig page and your profile as a portfolio. And first, you definitely want to include examples of your work in the images that you are offered on your gig page here. For instance, for this social media manager, they have lots of different images, not only featuring the types of things that they do for their clients, but also many different examples of the different types of posts and social media content that they help manage and create.
You guys are getting paid?
And you'll also notice that for most of these images, they also have reviews attached to them, because some of these images actually represent their completed orders, which, because this person actually has done a ton of orders, they can obviously include this, right? But if you're a newer Fiverr seller, you can't have this just yet unless you complete at least one order, which you can actually do, and I'll share with you how to get your first order later on in this video. But first, coming back to how to actually optimize your portfolio and gigs, besides including some of these images of examples of your work, you can actually also upload video clips, for example, of you explaining what your gig is all about and perhaps who you are, to sort of build a better connection with your prospective buyers and make them a bit more likely to purchase. And besides these things, another thing you should definitely do is to optimize your profile description as well. So for instance, this one here, even though they're a level 2 seller and have gotten, tons of orders, their profile description rather, is actually extremely short and doesn't really convince people that much about, who they are and why they are actually experts in whatever they're doing, right? Whereas, for example, if we actually switch over to another example here, this person who is also doing some social media related gigs, they actually describe themselves really well, and this is quite convincing because they talk about their educational background as well as their work experience and things like that. So this type of profile would definitely be something that you should have for your own.
I want that.
Next, moving on to tip number 3, and this is especially for completely new Fiverr sellers, and that is to niche down your gigs to avoid a lot of competition. And then after you get more reputation with your account, you can start listing more general, so to speak, gigs.
General knowledge?
And what I mean by this is either making your gigs very specific, for example, doing a certain type of social media post, or if there's a completely new fad that's going on with not too much competition, you can definitely do that as well. But for example here, for this gig, instead of just doing social media posts in general, this person actually chose to focus on social media sustainability type posts and quotes. And you'd be surprised at some of the random stuff that people would actually want to buy on Fiverr. But anyway, once you create your gigs, and by the way, you can list up to 7 as a beginner, or a new account rather, you definitely want to go onto Fiverr search bar and just search up your own gig type. For example, for this person here, I would search up like sustainability quotes or sustainability social media profile or whatever, and then just make sure that it actually shows up preferably on the first page of the search results. As long as I think you can get your page or your gig rather on the first page, you should generally be able to get quite a bit of eyeballs to it. Obviously, if it's on the upper half of the first page, it'll be a lot better, but just as long as you niche down enough, you should be able to get to some of the higher rankings on your search results. And because these gigs will likely see a lot more exposure compared to if you're doing something a lot more competitive, you'll likely also start to see some sales. And once you do and rank up as a seller, you can then start snowballing and then expanding into some of the more competitive gigs, which will inevitably start ranking better because of your increased reputation on your account. Speaking of which, onto tip number 4, and I've already sort of mentioned this, and it's that you should list as many gigs as you can manage.
Of course!
And I think the benefit of this should be quite obvious. The more gigs you have, the more opportunities you get on Fiverr, and the more easily or the more likely people will be able to find one of your gigs and purchase it. And I say list as many gigs and the types that you can actually manage because, for example, if one of your gigs starts blowing up in popularity and you can't actually keep up with all the demand because you have so many gigs on the platform, you definitely have to keep that in mind when you're actually creating all these different options. And this is very important because if you end up not fulfilling a gig on time and God forbid you actually get a negative review, this could actually impact you very negatively moving forward.
Stop it. Get some help.
Moving on to tip number 5, we have getting somebody to actually make a purchase of one of your gigs and give it a good review. Now this is sort of a hack that is not, obviously favored by Fiverr because if they actually find out, they will definitely ban your account. And so when you're doing this, you have to be extra careful and make sure whoever's logging in to, buy your gig is on a completely different device and internet connection. But if done right, this will give your gigs a very nice head start and boost in the rankings, and then also in reputation as well, because when people see the 5-star rating or whatever, they'll actually trust in your gig a lot more and thus be more likely to purchase. And with that, on to tip number 6, which is another one that'll help your gigs rank a lot higher and fast and for free. We have using what is so-called Fiverr Exchange Facebook groups, where you can actually, and as you can see there are a bunch of them, you can actually join any of these and actually post your gigs on the platform and sort of exchange traffic for each other. You don't have to obviously buy each other's gigs, but rather you can actually do something called favoriting, which is, as you can see on the top right here, there's like a heart, right? So you can actually love this gig. Essentially, you're just loving each other's gigs or favoriting them to actually help those gigs with the Fiverr search algorithm.
Right.
And if I just open up one of these groups to show you, and this one I'm actually a member of as well, we can see that it's a huge group group at over 84,000 members, and it's also a private group, which usually means it's somewhat more moderated, which is great. And it's also quite active as well, because if I just scroll through some of the posts, this one was from 4 hours ago, with someone posting their own Fiverr profile, and then a bunch of people have actually commented, posting their own Fiverr gigs and things like that, and essentially just helping each other, opening up each of their gigs, you know, helping each other like their gigs, and just helping the gigs rank higher in the searches.
It's nice.
And finally, last but not least, onto tip number 7, we have promoting your Fiverr gigs off of the platform. And this can be done on a variety of, for example, social media platforms like Twitter, where you can actually do an advanced search or just a normal search of people looking for specific types of things they need done. For instance, you can simply do a search like this, where I actually use the quotation marks to signify an exact phrase. Otherwise, you know, the words would sort of be spread apart, or it could be. And here you can see that there are some really recent posts of people who, you know, might actually need a logo, and you can actually just go and DM some of these people that you find for your specific type of gig, and just offer them and show them, you know, your actual Fiverr gig page, which again will act as your portfolio, right? Which hopefully will be convincing enough for them to want to actually buy from you. So that's another actual perk of having a Fiverr gig, because it actually acts as sort of a more reputable medium and sort of a sales page, if you will, or sort of a portfolio for people to actually want to trust you as a freelancer.
Trust me.
Another cool trick that I believe could actually work is if you reach out to local businesses via, say, Google Maps, where you can actually just very easily and conveniently find some of the businesses around your area, as well as their email addresses, where you can actually just write them a simple letter and include your Fiverr gig, as long as it's relevant to their business, right? And yet another way to potentially get even more clients is by messaging or emailing, especially smaller influencers, because oftentimes you'll need something done for their business or outsource, and that's where you can actually come in and offer them your services. And those are 7 tricks to help you get more traffic and make more money on Fiverr. Remember, you can check out my other video where I actually cover 30 beginner-friendly Fiverr gigs, as well as over 20 free tools to make your life easier when performing those gigs, as well as to give you more ideas for what types of gigs you can actually do. Plus, you can download my free YouTube ebook detailing how you can not only start your YouTube channel, but also monetize it in different ways in the first link in the description box below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it or found it helpful, and with that, I will see you in the next video. Peace.